Clare devanney. I hope I've got that right in pronunciation. Clare. So Clare is a researcher, a strategist, thinker, and practitioner whose academic work explores the dynamics of time and place as the foundation for a new organizational system and progressive measure of success. Clare is a strategic lead for place and culture in the north of England and a two-time TEDx speaker. Clare has worked with the Royal Society of Arts, Tech North, the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and FACT Liverpool. Clare will be asking questions like, what does an economic system look and feel like in the parallel state? How does Doncaster function as an economy without borders? What happens to Doncaster's identity as a northern town when insularity faces outward? When competition is replaced by collaboration, when othering is replaced with holism, when productivity is replaced with purpose, and when the accumulation of monetary wealth is replaced with the accumulation of time. Ladies and gents, Clare.
Hi everyone, thanks Josh. So it's great to be here, thanks very much. Very happy to be here and very happy to be back in the parallel state. My main question throughout the day really has been, why is it the parallel state? Why isn't it just the state? Because it strikes me as a great place to be, particularly because of its focus on holism, on moving away from polarities and binaries and dichotomies, and especially because our existing state as we stand is so entrenched in inequality, in unfairness and injustice. And so we've considered some of these polarized states as opposed to parallel states throughout the day. We've heard about temporary and permanent, about good and bad, about success and failure. The pandemic, as Mike alluded to before, has tested some of that thinking, particularly between the local and the global, the physical and the virtual. These are worlds that have been disrupted. And so we are tested in our thinking. But our thinking really is defined by our three-dimensional perception. Those poles that are so entrenched, up, down, left, right, right, wrong, and our ability to perceive of a third space, of a centre ground. And this doesn't just impact our physical space, but also our virtual spaces, our spaces of governance, and our spaces of the economy and our economic understanding. Now, we feel like we're in our spatial perceptions, we feel that we know where here is, we know where Josh is over there, and we know where somewhere in the middle is, so we're quite comfortable with that. But the problem with this three-dimensional understanding, and something that the post-structuralists were well onto, as they say where I'm from, is that when you establish a centre and a centre ground, you actually reinforce the polarities on either side. You create boundaries and peripheries, and with that you create margins, marginalisation and othering. And as I say, this relates to our economic space as well. So we have an economic space that is defined by the haves and the have-nots, the private and the public. This belongs to me, this is yours, this is mine. So this is the framing of the state that we are in at the moment. And currently I'm working with partners in the governance space, with Arts Council, with Historic England, with the Heritage Fund and with the Environment Agency. And my very grand title in that role is Strategic Lead for Place and Culture in the North. Now I know that there's a lot to unpick about that, but let's start with the North. So in a parallel state where there's no polarities, where there is no North and South, what is the North? Does it mean the end of my job? So the North as a concept, you know, we have put up with a state of othering in which we are now faced with policies around levelling up, around the skills gap, around the talent gap, around just this massive gap, right, between Coventry and Scotland. So So from within this gap, part of the job that I'm doing with all of those partners that I mentioned is to reframe and reclaim the Northern narrative, to tell our own story in our own voice, and to tell that proudly and confidently about we are the North. Now, this isn't the first time that I've thought about the North-South paradox and relationship. In fact, I had quite an existential moment, a kind of road to Damascus, and I was not at NASA, and I was not at Davos, and I didn't have to build a cock rocket on the back of unpaid Amazon workers to reach this moment. No, I was on the M74, travelling down from Dumfries to back to England. So my partner who's with me today is part Scottish. We spend a lot of time up in Scotland, and actually driving around this region today, I've seen that there are plenty of places where you might have your own experience of this, right? So even this morning I saw Barnsley, the south, but this was my moment. So Carlisle, which for those of us who live in the northwest of the country is like the tip of the northern iceberg. As we are travelling back down to England, no, Carlisle is in the south. So here I am on the motorway thinking, what is the north? What is the south? Whose north is it anyway? And so even though this might look quite an innocuous motorway sign, and as I say, there are plenty of them, actually this represents a blip in the space-time continuum. This is the same space-time order that governs our economic structure. And our approach to that is through globalization, something that David Harvey calls a downward spiral, the annihilation of space over time. And so how we've structured our economy is that we've carved a limited resource, space, into tiny parcels, and we trade those parcels. We go to war over those parcels. We put a flag in those parcels. And each time we do that, there is less and less space. This is the stealth privatization of space, and it is not very stealthy at the moment. So we're stuck in this downward spiral, and it is space over time. What we have the opportunity to do at the moment, and going back to my role with those partners, I'm looking at place and culture in the North. The difference between space and place was captured beautifully by the human geographer Tuan, who said that place is location plus meaning, and it is that meaning that is so important and makes the whole difference. Thinking about the provocation about what Doncaster is as a northern town in the parallel state. This is Doncaster as a place. What does that mean? This is embedded in the culture of the people and the place. And we have an opportunity to think about place and time instead of space and time. So how do we create that meaning? How do we change something that we are caught on this downward spiral and flip it around so that instead of losing space over time, we create time through place? And we can do that. We can contribute to our own time, to making time, to generating time, to time for ourselves as people, as a species, for other species, and for the planet. Now, you might well be thinking, which planet is this woman from at this point, right? And what's this got to do with Doncaster? But as we've seen today, and thinking about what place means and what public space and public places are, when we attribute meaning and when we embed meaning and culture, what those spaces would look like in a parallel state is places like this. This is what we are creating here, a location with meaning, with exchange of knowledge, exchange of ideas. This is creating a future Doncaster and experiencing it now. So what would that look like? What is Doncaster as a northern town in the parallel state? Well, is it north? Is it south? Is it a bird? Is it plain? No, it's super Doncaster. And, I was really moved by Lorna's piece. I'm so glad that you spoke with us, because even that plastic, depressed gold flamingo in the box in the charity shop doesn't know that it's made out of plastic, right? The flamingo thinks it's made of gold, and in the eyes of that child, it is made of gold. And so Lorna said, with creativity, she has wings. With creativity, Doncaster has wings. It's time to fly. Doncaster rocks. Thank you.